On the 18th of July 1989, Hollywood was shaken when young actress Rebecca Schaeffer, rising star of the sitcom My Sister Sam, was shot to death at the doorstep of her West Hollywood home by her own obsessed fan. The tragedy happened in an instant, but behind it lay years of stalking, fixation, and blind devotion twisted into a deadly nightmare. Rebecca was just 21, standing at the threshold of a promising career. But Robert John Bardo, a troubled young man, turned admiration into sick obsession. When he stood at Rebecca's door with a revolver hidden on his body, it was not merely an encounter between idol and fan, it was a fatal collision where beauty was strangled by madness. This story is not only the heartbreaking death of a rising star, but also a warning to Hollywood and society about the lethal dangers of unchecked obsession. So, what turned a fan into a killer? And how did Rebecca Schaeffer's death change America forever? Welcome to Hollywood Shadows, where shocking tragedies are retold with raw honesty and cinematic intensity. If you find this story gripping, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss the truths hidden behind Hollywood's glamour. It all began in 1986, when 8-year-old Rebecca Schaeffer, with her sweet face and radiant smile, appeared on television and quickly became a new symbol of American youth. Her role in My Sister Sam made her a household name, adored by millions. Among those fans was one who stood out, Robert John Bardo, a 6-year-old boy from Tucson, Arizona. At first, Bardo's devotion looked like any ordinary fandom. He wrote letters to Rebecca and once even received a signed reply. But for Bardo, it wasn't just a gift from a star, it was a sign of destiny. From that moment, admiration curdled into obsession. In 1987, Bardo traveled to Los Angeles, trying to sneak into Warner Brothers studios to meet Rebecca. Security turned him away. A month later, he returned, this time with a knife hidden on him. Again, he was stopped. Defeated, he went back to Tucson and briefly shifted his obsession to pop stars like Tiffany, Debbie Gibson, and Madonna. But his eyes never truly left Rebecca. His obsession only waited for its chance to explode. The breaking point came in 1989, when Bardo saw Rebecca in the film Scenes from the Class Struggle in Beverly Hills, where she appeared in a love scene. To ordinary viewers, it was just acting. To Bardo, it was betrayal. He grew jealous, furious, convincing himself that Rebecca had become just another Hollywood whore who needed to be punished. Bardo studied how Arthur Richard Jackson, who had attacked actress Teresa Saldana, had hired a private detective to track her down. Bardo copied him. For $250, he paid a Tucson detective agency to obtain Rebecca's home address from California DMV records. With help from his brother, he bought a Ruger GP 100, 300, and 57 revolver, the weapon of the coming tragedy. On the 18th of July 1989, Bardo traveled to Los Angeles for the third time. He wandered around Rebecca's West Hollywood neighborhood, questioning neighbors to confirm she lived there. Once sure, he rang her doorbell. That morning, Rebecca was preparing for an audition for The Godfather Part 3. She opened the door, thinking it was a script delivery. In front of her stood a young man holding an old letter she had once signed. Rebecca spoke briefly, then told him not to come back. Bardo nodded and walked away. He went to a diner nearby, ordered breakfast, but his mind spiraled. She rejected me. An hour later, he returned. When Rebecca opened the door again, her face was cold, clearly wanting to end the nuisance. In that instant, Bardo pulled out his revolver, aimed at her chest, and fired. The gunshot echoed. Rebecca collapsed at her doorstep. Before slipping into unconsciousness, she gasped, "Why? Why?" She was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, but within 30 minutes, she was pronounced dead. Hollywood lost a rising star, and America awoke to the terrifying fragility of the line between admiration and deadly obsession. The very next day, Robert John Bardo was arrested in Tucson after wandering erratically along a freeway. During questioning, he confessed immediately. The lead prosecutor was none other than Marcia Clark, who years later would become famous in the O.J. Simpson trial. Bardo's case captured nationwide attention. He was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. But the story didn't end there. The case exposed a deadly loophole in personal privacy. Bardo had easily obtained Rebecca's address because the DMV sold drivers' information. The outrage led Congress to pass the Driver's Privacy Protection Act of 1994, banning the release of personal information from DMV records. Even more directly, California passed America's first anti-stalking law in 1990, with other states soon following. Rebecca's death also left cultural scars. Her boyfriend, filmmaker Brad Silberling, later transformed his grief into the 2002 film Moonlight Mile. Her co-stars from My Sister Sam created a public service video against gun violence in her memory. From tragedy, Rebecca became a symbol of legal reform in America, a bitter truth, but proof that her life was not forgotten. Rebecca Lucille Schaeffer was born in 1967 Inches, Oregon, to a Jewish family. From childhood, she dreamed of the arts. At 16, she became a model in New York, later moving to Japan to pursue opportunities. Though her petite frame limited her modeling career, her charm and expressive eyes soon caught casting directors' attention. Her big break came in 1986 with My Sister Sam. Within one season, she was a familiar face on American television, beloved by millions for her wholesome image. Major magazines began touting her as one of Hollywood's most promising young stars. Meanwhile, Robert John Bardo, born in 1970, was the youngest of 7 children in Tucson, Arizona. His childhood was unstable. His parents overworked, and he himself was noted for psychological problems with records of personality disorder. Isolated and unstable, he turned to television for comfort, seeing celebrities as family in his imagination. When he saw Rebecca on screen, Bardo cast her as the embodiment of purity and ideal love. But what began as devotion twisted into possession. Unable to distinguish fantasy from reality, he built an imaginary relationship with her, and when that illusion collapsed, he chose destruction. That tragic contrast, a bright young star versus a deranged fan, was the heart of the crime. And when the gunshot rang out, it not only ended Rebecca's life, but also jolted a nation awake to the dangers of distorted love. Rebecca Schaeffer's death remains one of Hollywood's most haunting tragedies of the late 20th century. A rising star, just 21 years old, gunned down at her own doorstep, the very place that should have been safest. Her killer wasn't a stranger, but a fan whose warped devotion mutated into murder. From the bright glow of television to the darkness of violence, Rebecca's story revealed the shadow side of fame. How fragile young lives are when every smile, every role, can become the object of someone's obsession. But this tragedy went beyond personal loss. It changed the system. Her death sparked America's first anti-stalking law and stronger protections of personal privacy. That bitter legacy ensures her life was not in vain. More than 3 decades later, the questions still remain. Was Robert John Bardo just a deranged individual, or a symptom of a society unprepared to protect the vulnerable? And was Rebecca Schaeffer merely the victim of one man, or also a casualty of an entertainment industry that left its young stars exposed? What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to join us for more stories of tragedy behind Hollywood's glittering facade. Your support keeps us uncovering the shocking dramas where fame and misfortune always walk hand in hand.